biological pest control. Today we are going to look at biological pest control methods. Biological pest control method, this is the reduction of pest damage to our crops by using natural enemies. In this method, we don't use any chemical, we don't build any barriers, okay? We only introduce animals which have ability to eat other animals. For example, we may introduce chicken to eat the grasshopper. We may introduce the ducks to eat the other pests such as the worms from our gardens. May you read the advantages, the merits of this method? Elizabeth, may you read?
It is environmental pollution free.
Okay, continue. You read
No development of pest resistance. Pest population does not block out of proportion. Does not affect pest predators. It is self-adjusting, hence a farmer does not need to think about it. It is cheap method of pest control.
All right, thank you. The advantages of this method is that it is environmental pollution free. Doesn't pollute the environment, doesn't leave any residue on our crops while they are in the garden. And then the other advantage number 2, no development of pest resistance. There is no way a pest can resist pest control method, because we have seen other methods such as chemical pest control whereby a pest has ability to withstand the effectiveness of a particular pesticide. But once we use this method, there's no way it can be resistant. It cannot be resistant to be eaten by the hen or any other organism. The other method, pest population does not blow out of proportion. It does not go out of control. A manageable number of pests can easily be found inside the garden. And the other method is advantage says it does not affect pest predators. The predators are these organisms which eat other organisms. For example, you are a predator to a cow or chicken because you eat it. So such animals, such organisms which feed on other organisms are not destroyed by this method. Their population is maintained. The other advantage is it is self-adjusting, hence a farmer does not need to think about it. Once you introduce once we introduce this method, we introduce these organisms in the garden, they do destroy crops without any supervision. It is a cheap method of pest control. The cheap method of pest control does not incur any cost. So in this method, what? Hello? So this method also has its own disadvantages. It is very slow in operation. It does not have ability to reduce the pest population in the shortest time possible. Biological agents may attack crops. Okay, you are back on board. Biological agents may attack crops or spread disease. The agents which you have introduced, the living organisms you have introduced into the garden, the biological agents may in turn to be the enemies of the crops. Okay, so that's a disadvantage. It may also eliminate the pests completely. It may not also eliminate the pests completely. Reason being, not all parasites have prey in the garden. Some predators feed on a specific type of prey compared to others, meaning that the pest population will not be eliminated completely. Biological agents may fail to establish. If you bring them, for example, you introduce biological agents from one country or one locality to another, that new environment may not favor their multiplication. At the end of the day, they may die off. When they die off, it means that the population is going to increase on the pest side. Okay? So after looking at the disadvantages of biological method, characteristics of a very good biological agent, that organism that you introduce into your garden to control a certain pest, their features it should be having, the characteristics you should be looking at before introducing in a biological agent into a garden. Okay, Shania, you're welcome. You read the characteristics of a very good biological agent. Shania, we are waiting. Characteristics of a very good biological agent. Number one, it should have a high searching ability for the pest. Once you introduce the agent into the garden, it should be able to look out for only and only the pest. It should not destroy even other things which are in the garden. When you introduce chicken in your garden of beans, let it not again start eating beans. Let it look for the grasshopper and the rest of the Yes, good evening, Shania. Welcome for this lesson. We are requesting you to read some of the characteristics of the biological agent.
Yes, teacher.
You read the characteristics of biological agent.
Should have a high searching ability for the pests. Must be host specific. Should have a high reproduction rate. Should be easy to multiply artificially. Must attack pests at the correct stage. Should not attack crops. Should be adapted to a wide range of environments.
All right. The agent which we are introducing into our garden must be host specific. it should only hunt out for the pest, not other important living organisms, such as the earthworm, because earthworms are important, such as the bees. The bees are very important. They produce for us honey. It should have a high reproduction rate. It should be able to produce very, very fast, to multiply in number such that it causes a reduction in pest population. If you get a biological agent which is not productive, this means that the population of pests will overpower the population of the biological agent, which becomes a problem to our crops. The other point, the biological agent should be easy to multiply artificially. You should be able to multiply it, but if you are not able to multiply it artificially, it means that it may not be effective in controlling the pests. Here we mean that if you have our chicken, the chicken goes to the garden, it feeds on locusts, it feeds on grasshopper. You can multiply the hen properly in the short artificially by hatching its eggs. Okay, so that means that if you cannot if the agent does not multiply easily, it's not suitable to act as a biological agent. And then the other is, must attack pests at the correct stage. If it should be able to attack the pest at the early stage, maybe, because most of the pests are dangerous at the larvae stage. For example, the caterpillars. The caterpillar is a certain age, a certain stage of a certain cycle of a pest. Should not attack crops. Don't again introduce. This is what I was saying, that you introduce a hen to eat grasshopper, you introduce a duck to eat the snails, termites. At the end of the day, you find it eating maize. That becomes dangerous. That's not a very good biological agent. Should be adapted to a wide range of environments. When you take it, when you introduce it from one place to another, it should be able to be productive in the same way. There should not be any deterioration in its productivity. Okay, is this page clear, Shania? Even Eliza has come back.
Yes.
All right. So here we have another method. Method number 5. Method number 1 we had. Who can recall what we covered in the previous sessions in management of pests? Apart from chemical method and biological method, which other methods do you know that control pests? Hello, at least Shania, you have been in class.
Pardon, teacher.
I'm asking, apart from biological pest control method and the chemical pest control method, which other methods do you remember that we covered previously?
I remember that.
Okay, we have chemical, biological, physical or mechanical. Physical simply means you just hand pick. You could easily even put up a fence. Okay, all of those fall under physical. Now here we have number 5, integrated pest management. Integrated pest management, in simple terms, it means that You put all other methods together. You put chemical, you put physical, you put biological and legal pest control method. You put all of them together in order to control a certain pest. This is the use of common sense approach that involves the use of many methods to bring down the pest population to such a level that they will not be very dangerous to us. Okay? The pest is not eliminated, but is kept at a lower population, enough only to provide food for predators. Okay? This method is not elimination method, it's a reduction method. It reduces the numbers of the pest. Okay? So, Elizabeth, you read for us, what is involved in IPM, Integrated Pest Management System?
Use of predators and pathogens. Use of behavior modifying chemicals, e.g. pheromones, chemical sterilants, and other hormones. Exploitation of host resistance. Develop plant configurations and structures that will make the plant less susceptible to pest attack.
All right, thank you. IPM involves use of predators and pathogens. Predators are these organisms which have ability to feed on other organisms for survival. We have been using an example of grasshopper and chicken, ducks and snails. Pathogens, we have bacteria, we have fungi and viruses. Okay, you use them to control a certain pest. Use of behavior modifying chemicals, such as the pheromones. These are hormones found in plants and other animals, such as the bees, which attract and repel pests away from our crops. Apart from that, what else is involved? We have exploitation of the host resistance. You remove the resistance of the host, exploitation of the host resistance. The host, in this case, is the plant itself, the crop. You improve its ability to resist the pest attack. How do you do that? Number one, by early planting, such that by the time the crop matures, the pest population is still low. How do you improve the host resistance? Shania, I beg you mute your mic. And then the last one says, develop plant configurations and structures that will make the plant less susceptible to pest attack. You improve the plant's immunity. How do you do that? Number one, by breeding. Planting crops with higher pest resistance. Breeding crops of different types. You bring hormones of crops, genes, tissues of crops which have different potentials in controlling a certain pest. Is this page clear? Shania, is this page clear?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. What are the characteristics of IPM? Characteristics of IPM. Shania, read. What are the characteristics of IPM?
Reducing the pest population below the economic injury level. Emphasizes complementary application of control methods. In brackets, use of more than one control method. No specific guidelines on the intensity of application, but emphasis on the safeguarding of the environment. It emphasizes the use of good crop management practices. Emphasizes the exploitation of the host crop resistance. It emphasizes denial of entry and establishment of pests in the field. Chemical control is used as a last solution.
All right, thank you. Number one, it does reduce the population below the economic injury. Economic injury is when the damage caused to the crop reduces the amount of money that is supposed to be harvested. Much damage leads to losses. That is what we call high economic injury. And then the other is emphasizes complementary application of control measures or methods. You use different methods to control a certain pest, not only one. No specific guidelines on the intensity of application, but emphasizes on the safeguarding of the environment. It is not quantified that you have to apply this milligrams, you have to do this every after 2 weeks. That is not guaranteed. It's not there. You use every method. Today, if you spray using a chemical, next time you weed. After using a weed, next time you construct a fence. Or you introduce biological agents in the garden. And then the other point says, it emphasizes the use of good crop management practices. Shania, could you give an example of good crop management practices? Hello, an example of a good crop management practice? Pardon? Okay. And what else?
Mulching.
Very good. We have thinning, mulching, pruning, even harvesting is there, spacing. Okay. Those are the very good management practices. The other is it emphasizes the exploitation of the post-crop resistance. You boost the crop's ability to resist the pest. And I will explain how it is done. By breeding, by early planting, such that the crop escapes the pest population. And then the other, the chemical control is used as the last solution. It's the last thing to be used. What are the advantages of IPM, integrated pest management? Number one, it is cheaper since it utilizes natural factors. You use the environment. You do the weeding. After doing the weeding, you introducing biological agents. After that, maybe you could construct a fence. Okay? Use natural factors. Another advantage, it is more environmental friendly since it does discourage use of chemicals. Chemicals are not used, so you don't pollute our environment. Traditional farmers can use it since it involves mixture of traditional and modern methods of pest control. It is cheap and easy to use by everybody. Doesn't involve money too much. If today you can afford a fertilizer or a herbicide, next time you may not be able to afford it. So what do? You practice another method. And then the other says, it cultivates a spirit of self-reliance in pest control. You use what is available. You think about how we can use what is available in the community in order to control a certain pest. The last one says, it has the potential of offering permanent solution to pest population. It could be the best pest control measure because it is cheap. It reduces the pest population to a minimal, manageable number. Okay. Shani, are you seeing this picture here? Hello? Shani, are you seeing this picture? Are you able to see this picture where the pointer is? Have you ever seen such a picture or diagram, this instrument before, this equipment? Do you know it?
Mouse trap.
Yes?
Mouse trap.
You mean you have not seen this before? It is one of the traps used to capture rats. Okay? Before the introduction of rat books, this used to be the best to control the rats. You put a bite somewhere there, maybe food, and then when it comes to taste, the neck is captured, the head is captured. This falls under physical pest control measure. So there are constraints and limitations. Why is it that most farmers don't use this method? Limitations or disadvantages of this method? Shania, read the advantages, disadvantages, and the limitations of this method, IPM. Hello, you read the constraints and limitations.
Farmers are reluctant to adopt a solution whose outcomes they are not sure of. It is difficult to develop standard packages that will suit every farming system. Results are not dramatic, hence farmers cannot be easily convinced. The method requires farmers to have a good understanding of the pest ecology, and this may be lacking in the farmers. Requires a lot of time and skills to control the pest.
All right, thank you. Constraints of this method, the limitations, why most farmers don't like it. Number one, farmers are reluctant to adopt a solution whose outcomes are not sure of. If you use chemicals, you spray and the next minute you see the pests falling there and they are dead. What of this method, which you are not sure of? That's why farmers don't adopt it so easily. And then the other, it is difficult to develop standard packages. You cannot quantify. You cannot say, tomorrow I'm using 2 kilograms of IPM. You cannot quantify. That is the challenge with IPM method. The other point says, its results are not dramatic. Hence, farmers cannot be easily convinced. You cannot convince a farmer that when you use the chemicals, after using chemicals, you fence, after fencing, you introduce biological agents, a farmer may not be convinced with your explanation. So that simply means they are not going to adopt this method. And then the method requires farmers to have good understanding of the pest ecology. And this may be lacking in farmers. Pest ecology, the environment the pests live in. When you have the knowledge of how the environment which favors the growth of this pest, you could be able to adopt this method. But most farmers lack such wisdom. Hence, they abstain from this method. And then the other, it requires a lot of time and skills to control the pest. You have to take time, because now after applying all those methods, you fumigate using chemicals, you build a fence, and other measures. This takes a lot of time to control the pest compared to chemical. You just spray once and for all. Number 6 is the last control measure, legal pest control. This involves regulation of movement of commodities to exclude potential pests, prevent further spread of this pest already present, and supplement eradication programs. For example, when they introduced the issue of lockdown, quarantine, movement of people was stopped from one place to another in order to curb down the spread of the virus. This is similar here. Crops are stopped from moving from one area to another. Areas which have been affected by a certain pest are not allowed to bring their crops to the to the market. So that simply means the farmer is controlled, and the disease, the pest is also controlled in that simple way. And then the other, which it still talks about eradication program. You make programs which have ability to reduce the total number of the pest population. But there are different types of legal control ways. Number 1 is eradication. Eradication simply means complete elimination of the pest from an area or region. You remove it totally, completely. It may not be very easy. Okay? Removing a pest totally from an area may not be very easy. But eradication is one of the legal control measures. And then there is containment. This is applied before the pest has fully established itself in a new area. You contain centers. Containment centers may be established along the edges of the infected area to prevent penetration into the pest-free area. If you discover that in Mpigi district, there is a pest which affects beans, you tell farmers, no, let other farmers not bring their beans into this district of Mpigi, such that we first contain this disease. Don't move produce or crops out of this containment area in order to eliminate the disease from that area only. And then we have suppression. This is applied to pests applicable of a periodic outbreak. For example, armyworms and desert locusts. They come in a certain area. Their numbers are periodically monitored, controlled to help prevent peak attack. Okay? Suppression, it calls for international control. When the locusts came in 2020 and 2019, different bodies have to come in place to make sure that they suppress, they reduce the multiplication of these pests. Suppression simply means you reduce their multiplication. Okay? So those are a different legal control measures. Is this page clear to you, Shania, and the rest who are following? Hello? Okay. Since it is clear, there are factors which are considered before using a legal pest control measure. Factor number one, the pest must offer actual threat. You have to control a pest which has threat. Don't control a pest which has no threat, which does not have ability to cause much damage on our crops. The other point says, no less destructive substance action or trade should be available. When you are instituting this method, everybody should be able to agree on it. If in Uganda you are controlling locusts, even people of Kenya should be also controlling their locusts, but they should be agreeing with the method you are using. The other point says the objective of the quarantine should be reasonably possible to attain. It should be, don't just institute quarantine without having the main reason. You should have a reason at the back of your mind, such that you are able to contain or eliminate a certain pest. The economic gains from the legal control must outweigh the cost of administration. You cannot end up spending too much in controlling a certain pest, and at the end of the day, you earn less. The expenditure of controlling a pest is more than the outcome from selling the produce. And then there are other reasons for increase in pest population. What are those things which have increased pest population? Number one, use of chemicals. These chemicals have led to death of predators. Predators are biological agents which have ability to reduce the total population of pests. But if these chemicals kill the predators, the pest population will increase. And then the other, we have some pests have become resistant to chemicals used due to frequent use of the chemicals. They have become very resistant. Okay. Hence, they are increased in number. Drainage. This reduces the amount of water, thus creating favorable conditions for the pests which thrive in areas of relatively low moisture content. When you reduce water, most people have drained the swamps for settlement, but that has led to the increase in pest population because there are those pests which enjoy staying in such areas, and such areas enable them to multiply so easily. The other is introduction of new crops into the area has made previously harmless insects become pests. There are some crops which have been introduced in certain areas. For example, for us this side, in Teso, we never used to grow matoko, and we had no challenges with certain pests. But now the pests which were harmless by then, before the introduction of matoke, have become
more dangerous compared to before the matoke was introduced. The other point is change in demand patterns for the crops. Crops that are not in demand are neglected and their pests are left to multiply. As it happens with coffee, when coffee prices fall. When there is too much coffee, the pests multiply because coffee can be left in the store or in the field, in the garden. The pests have what to feed on. They feed on the coffee, but once coffee is sold off, there will be nothing. They have already broken their cycle. They have nothing to feed on. So such a reason has led to increase in pest population. Change in climate. A phenomenon like global warming may favor some pests by killing their predators. Too much temperatures have killed predators, which would control these pests. And vice versa, when temperatures are too cold, some pests are also favored, and their multiplication is easy. And then the last one says, cyclic or periodic occurrences. Cyclic or periodic occurrences, cyclic climatic changes or drought is often followed by pest outbreak. Whenever there is drought, there is a certain number of pests that break out. So such factors have led to increase in pest population. I hope this page is clear to everybody. In case you find that there is nothing you have understood or there is something that you feel you need more explanation, you can still ask any question. So next time when we meet, we shall be able to talk about diseases. Different types of diseases. But I will send you an assignment based on what we have covered, in pest control, from where we started from up to where we have ended. And then we shall start a new chapter. We shall talk about crop diseases. When a crop falls sick, what happens? What causes the disease? Okay. Thank you so much for attending, those who are on YouTube and those who are in the live class. Thanks so much. We shall meet again next time when we meet. Have a blessed evening.